6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service. But you don't need to go that route. Silver Compass Realty is a full-service real estate brokerage serving all of South Central Wisconsin, and the commission is negotiable. Silver Compass will explain exactly what they're going to do to help you buy or sell a home, how that will help you reach your goals, and stand right beside you every step of the way. They want to be your broker, your expert, even when you're not in the middle of a transaction. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Contact them today at silvercompassrealty.com or call 608-361-8608. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home.
Would you like to experience being one of the free people who produce their own meat and eggs? PurelyPoultry.com has both the chickens and supplies you need to raise your own poultry.
Would you like pets who produce eggs you can barter with? Your own source of clean meat?
A swan on your pond to make your home strikingly beautiful?
How about some pheasants and quail roaming in your woods for enjoyment? If so, check out PurelyPoultry.com.
Burger House 41 is open at 1860 West Mason in Green Bay. You're invited to indulge in one of life's simplest pleasures, a great burger. We're grilling up 15 fresh signature burgers and have over 30 craft beers for the perfect pairing. Experience Wisconsin's best flavors, including white cheddar cheese curds, a variety of specialty sandwiches, milkshakes, and gourmet frozen custard. Burger House 41 at 1860 West Mason is open at 11 a.m. daily. Taste Wisconsin. Taste amazing.
I know a guy who actually bought the Alex Jones End of the World food supply kit, and then he was broke, and so he ended up just eating everything that was in the kit.
That's kind of what it's.
We're gonna try this again. Coming back from our break.
It's an aftermarket
We totally botched that. I totally botched it.
The homeless survival kit.
The homeless survival kit. We're back to Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com after a somewhat botched return from the break because
they were being spontaneous.
I'm not used to engineering the show. At the same time, these guys are saying hilarious stuff during the break. But Patrick has something you'd like to bring up, and I think it's a point of trivia, and I think it's very telling about our current president. Lay it on us, Patrick.
This is my favorite fact about Trump I've ever heard. He's the first president in 131 years to not have a dog.
Has he been asked about that? Why don't you have a dog?
Any
of kids had dogs? No dogs in the family? I don't know.
His wife, who in his family, if his wife had a dog, would probably be the kind you can carry in your purse, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's an accessory. It's not really a pet. I don't know. I mean, I'm a dog person. I got a cat too. I love cats too. I'm an animal person. I love all kinds of animals. But
we had both a dog and a cat until recently, and the cat went somewhere else to live. Planned, not just escaped. Yeah. But
that's not what you told the kids. It went somewhere else.
No, when the kids were little, we had a little frog, like a frog that lived in the aquarium, and it died. And we said that it went on vacation.
Yeah.
And then they forgot about it. That's how you parent, folks. Parenting 101. You get everything here.
My theory with Trump is that he doesn't need a dog because the main reason a president needs a dog is that at the end of one of those really long days where you've just had a terrible day and everybody hates you, you can go up to the West Wing, up to the second floor, and you can curl up with your dog, and there's at least one person in the world that has unconditional love for you no matter what. And Donald Trump doesn't need that because all he has to do is go up to the second floor of the West Wing and look in the mirror, and there's that person that has unconditional love for him no matter what. So what does he need a dog for?
He doesn't need it. His ego is big enough. He doesn't need to be supported in that way. So back to the AHCA. I don't even know if they're calling it anymore.
So what could the Republicans have done that would have been
more? I mean, they could have just repealed it, right? I mean,
that would have been great.
They could have just repealed it and repealed a bunch of other stuff, but that's all hopelessly naive and optimistic.
I've said one really good tactic for the Republicans politically would have been to say, we're just going to repeal everything effective January 1st, 2019.
So 2 years.
2 years.
Almost.
So that's 2 years. Nothing changes for 2 years. that gives them 2 years to come up with an alternative, and it gets them to the midterm elections. If they would have done that, at least they would have had 2 years. But Trump was in such a hurry to have a Rose Garden moment, which is what he had last week. That's what this was all about. It was about Trump getting a Rose Garden moment. So what could they have done that actually would have made a difference if they would have done something other than just repeal it?
Lay it on us.
In my blog, The Libertarian Federalist, I've been doing a series looking at different aspects of healthcare from a libertarian perspective. And I think a couple of principles that I came up with that I think we should think about when we're thinking about this issue is, number one, obviously we should be in favor of the market being in control. Not the government, but the market being in control of healthcare as much as is possible. And I think there's a lot of room to expand the power of markets
Agreed.
in healthcare.
And if you want more information on that, we did an episode, I don't remember the number, 15 or 16, where you and I did pretty much the whole hour
Right.
on that.
We talked
Disagreed
about
on
that.
a few things, but agreed on a lot of things.
there's-
Moving things. There's so many good market solutions
There's a
for
lot
basic
of
care.
ideas out there.
Basic care.
Tons of ideas, and all we need to do is just get the government out of the way. When we talk about all of these mandates on coverage, I ask the question: why in the world should a 22-year-old single man or a woman who's gone through menopause and is in her 50s, why should they be forced to have an insurance policy that covers pregnancy? That doesn't make any sense. Well, people say, well, what about women? We need to have those people that aren't going to get pregnant helping to pay for the people that do get pregnant.
I think the answer is, if I might interrupt, that they're not really paying a premium on their own insurance.
No, they're
that's
paying
the fallacy. It's really just a socialized. They're paying in, and
Right.
then it's being paid out, and it's not specific to them.
And I get the concept of spreading risk through a large risk pool, and that's.
But if
I'm
you
not
have no
opposed to that
risk, like you're
idea.
pointing out, then that doesn't make any. Then it's
Right.
then it's false.
But
That
it's
whole
kinda
idea
like
is false.
Car insurance. It's like saying, well, people who have 4 cars. It would be really expensive for them to insure all their cars. So people who have only 1 car should pay more. So the people with 4 cars won't have to pay as much.
And people with no cars still have to pay.
If that was the market, people wouldn't go for that.
People would
They
freak
wouldn't
right
accept
out.
that. No, that's
and
that's
rightfully
crazy.
so.
So right there, the combination of those two things, if both the state and the federal government, as much as is possible, as soon as it's possible, could get out of the way of the markets for healthcare and let the markets, because believe me, the insurance companies will, if they're given the freedom to do so. People think the insurance companies will suddenly cut me off of all my coverage if they're not regulated by the government. That may be true to some degree, perhaps, but I think they're more likely to want to come up with creative market-based products that are appealing. They're going to go sell a product to that 22-year-old young guy that's tailored to him. But then they're going to go to a family with 4 kids, and they're going to offer them a policy that's tailored to them.
Well, it's similar to how
It's basic business.
how the insurance industry responded to Uber coming into existence. The problem with Uber came in illegally in most communities, most places, and when they became part of the discussion and regulations had to exist to acknowledge their existence or whatever, the insurance companies responded by having a product for people who were driving their own cars, but also drove Uber, which they didn't have before.
Right.
But Uber forced the issue.
How quick did that happen? Like overnight?
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, it's just a matter of pulling some numbers, measuring some risk, and putting a price on it.
Insurance companies are not dumb.
They're brilliant at that. Actually,
Yeah,
that's a benefit.
Give them a chance to make money in the market, and they will offer products to people that people want and that are useful to people.
And the more insurance companies there are, the better the competition and the better the prices will be.
Sure,
And the better the
sure,
service, the
sure.
better the policies.
So that's priority number one. And this bill by the Republicans does virtually nothing for that. We talked about getting rid of the mandates, but the point is that states don't have to get rid of the mandates. They can keep they can put more mandates on there if they want to. There's nothing deregulating that at all. Another principle that I think as libertarians we ought to look at is choice, and that gets back to what I was just saying about having a wide variety of different plans available. I think people ought to have as much choice as possible within the healthcare market. If you're a young person and you are healthy, why should you have to buy an expensive policy that covers everything? Well, why can't you take the risk of going with a high deductible plan that is basically catastrophic coverage if that's your choice? And I've talked also about people who choice is a little difficult. Like, let's say if you're working as a clerk for 28 hours a week, $9 an hour, and your employer doesn't offer you health care, obviously that person needs help. I think there's some libertarians like to say, well, we'll have some charity that'll take care of those people. I've been critical of that point of view. I still think that there needs to be some level of assistance, at least in the intermediate period, before we can get to a complete self-pay system. And in that model, premium support. In other words, paying for people's insurance instead of paying people's claims. If the government's going to be involved at all in people's health care, what makes the most sense, and by the way, this could apply to veterans as well. We could get rid of the entire Veterans Department if all we did is say, okay, we're going to just help you pay. Well, in the case of veterans, we're going to pay 100% for your premiums of your insurance for you and your family, because that's the bargain we made with veterans. Okay.
Yep.
But for people who are in poverty, we pay most or some of their premiums for healthcare. And we say to all these people, veterans, poor people, all working poor, go find a plan. Find a plan that suits you for what you need. We'll have a standard rate that we pay based on your age or situation, whatever it may. Single parent with kids, married couple with kids. There'll be a standard premium support rate that we'll give, and that as your income goes up, the amount the government gives you goes down. If we did that, we would save an enormous amount of money. We wouldn't have a bureaucracy regulating healthcare the way that we do now. These ridiculous waivers going back and forth between the states and the Fed that you have in the Republican plan. These slush funds that they're setting up, stuff
it's
like that.
It's basically employment welfare. You have
right.
huge branches of the federal government employed for the purpose of shuffling these papers and
right.
this money and this information around, and it's totally unnecessary.
It's kind of like the idea of a basic standard income. That's something that some libertarians have touted. And I think I agree that if it's something that replaces our existing welfare system and reduces costs, reduces government intervention, and perhaps could be a bridge to something truly libertarian, then premium support, guaranteed income, those two concepts I think are in the same continuum. And I think that's one possible way that we could have an intermediate step towards a potential self-pay system.
And the thing is that this bill that passed is still so far away, just as far away as Obamacare was from any sort of free market solution to, the massive costs of health insurance and health care, that we don't even know. The discussion that we had on a previous show about, what would a transition look like? How much would the government have to be involved? How much would charity pick up? We have no idea what that is. We're still so far away.
We're never going to
We
find out.
need to strip
unless
things
we
away
start
and
moving
measure
in that
and measure. Exactly.
Which
but
we're not doing right now.
No. There's no political desire for that. It basically really demonstrates that voters in influencing their legislators don't have. That's not what's going on. It's about other interests. Much bigger money interests that keep people elected and that keep people rich after they serve in the federal government, and that a voter could possibly have, or even a group of voters.
It's a bureaucrat protection scheme, is what it is.
That's exactly right. So after this break, as soon as I get this started, we are going to continue with that, but we're also going to talk a little bit about why does the government feel like it has to be able to tell us everything that we need to do? Why do progressives in particular have this opinion about knowing more than we do, knowing more than individuals do, and eschewing individuals' rights? A shout out to the Northern Wisconsin militia who are watching. Thanks for watching and listening. They actually are. Don't laugh, Miles. They're coming for you.
I didn't know that.
We'll be back at the Free People Show, freepeopleshow.com after a short break. Stay with us.